should have filmed this weeks ago.
So at this point, it's pretty much old news, but Marvel finally released the trailer for Spider-Man No Way Home, and it looks insanely epic. Like, I cannot wait for this movie. But in the meantime, this shot from the trailer caught my eye, and I was like, I wonder if I can make something like that. So I did, but only using free software, because that's all I have. So I started with the wonky buildings. In Fusion, I made a simple building using a Shape 3D on Cube, unchecking the lock width, height, and depth, and playing around with the height. I got the texture off of Graphics Crate, which has a bunch of really cool free assets. They're not sponsoring this video, but you should definitely check them out. I made another version of this building, which was a bit taller for some variation. Then I made another Shape 3D, this time on Torus, which gave me this donut. I played around with the radius and section, brought down the height subdivisions, and used this donut to drive a Replicate 3D. This node can give you some really cool and abstract, kind of Doctor Strange-ish results. I made sure the alignment was on aligned, increased the scale, gave it some rotation jitter on the X and Z axis, then animated the X rotation. For the rest of the city in the background, I found this overhead picture of a city on pexels.com, which is free. Then with a transform, I brought the size down a lot and made sure the edges were set to mirror, which gave me this tiling texture. I also used an ellipse to cut out this hole in the middle so that the glowing void he's falling into can show through. I'm not sure what it is, but it was in the trailer, so it looked cool. I put this on an image plane 3D and put the size to over 100, so it was big. Next, I made the wall crawler himself. The amazing, the spectacular Spider-Mannequin. That was a dumb joke. Yep, to make Spider-Man, I used this mannequin model from Mixamo. I used this model because it doesn't have any facial features, so it would look like he's wearing a mask. I gave him a falling animation and downloaded it as a DAE, but I can't use that format in Fusion, so I converted it to an Alembic using Blender. This kind of raises the question, why didn't I just do this all in Blender? In a nutshell, I'm not really confident in Blender yet. I've done a few things with it, but I can't make something without watching a step-by-step tutorial for it. Also, my computer is not crazy fast, so Blender just runs really sluggish for me, and rendering just takes forever. So it was just easier for me to make this in Resolve. So to get Spidey to look like himself, I took the texture into paint.net, which is free, and edited it to get this very janky Spider-Man texture. So I brought the mannequin into Fusion, but the animation stopped at frame 88. So I used a Time Machine 3D, which doesn't come with Fusion, but is on Reactor, which is free. I put the mode on Remap, set the end frame to 88, and set the before and after time to loop. That way the animation kept going. Then I hooked up my texture to get this. It's not going to win any beauty contest, but with motion blur and color grading, it wasn't going to matter that much. So I wanted to throw in some clouds to give a sense of scale, so I found this picture on Graphics Crate and spread them out with a Replicate 3D. Next, I got my camera movement. To keep things running real time, I used this stretched out sphere in the place of Spider-Man and animated it to go down over the course of the shot. I animated the target on the camera to follow it and set some translation and rotation keyframes. To make the sky, I used the aptly named Day Sky node. I tweaked the colors a little bit with a color corrector, then plugged that into an image plane with a huge size, like over 200. I gave it some rotation keyframes just so that it stayed in camera. I wasn't worried about the bottom because I knew the ground would cover that up. So to keep my computer from exploding, I rendered each layer individually. So Spidey was his own layer, the ground, the building, so on. Ideally, I would have rendered them with alpha so that I could just stack them on top of each other without any problem, but I've never been able to get that to work. I don't know if it's my computer or my render settings, but rendering with alpha has never worked for me. So I just merged them on top of a green background and rendered it as that. Then I could key it out later. I brought all these into a new Fusion comp just to keep things tidy. I keyed out the city and the buildings, did some really basic color correction, added a blur, and then I merged them on top of each other. Then I merged that on top of the sky. I did the same for the clouds and Spidey. To make the glowing void, I used the city and buildings merge as a mask for a white background. I added a soft glow with a large size to this and merged it over. Then I added a lens flare just because the shot was looking a bit flat and nothing spices up a shot like a good lens flare. Except maybe lasers. Lasers and lens flares, guaranteed to spice up any shot. Side note, when I was making that shot, I actually found a really quick and easy way to make lasers in Fusion, so if you want a tutorial on that, please let me know in the comments. So after a really basic color grade and some cinematic bars, I finally had this. I'll be the first to admit it's a little rough around the edges, but it was fun to make, and it was really satisfying to take this from, I wonder if I could do this, to I did it. I didn't perfectly recreate the original shot. I mean, this is Marvel VFX we're talking about. But I honed my VFX skills some more, so I consider this a win. I did a similar test a while back when I tried to recreate the Captain America shield throw. You can check that out here.